Is always in style. We're so glad that you've joined us. I'll tell you what, the world we live in right now is pretty amazing. We're not sure what's happening when, where, how. All kinds of things happen really quick. And, Mark Lowry, who does that intro music for us, I love what he says. Some things never change, because we often think, oh, man, some things never change. But actually what he's talking about there is God's love and faithfulness never changes. So we end up with, we're heading in the right track to begin with. But I'll tell you what, we talk about politics, education, religion, technology, sports, values, and healthy communities. And I get to bring on board here every week some old friends that, I've had some relationships with over the years, and are doing some just spectacular things in our community. And as a result, you get to hear about some really unique things that are taking place. And today with me is Don Eskes. Don is a friend. We were just talking about it, Don, just before we got the show started. We've known each other now for almost 30 years.
Yes.
Amazing. What were you doing at the time when we first met? What was the company that you were with?
I was with a company called Cellulo.
And, yes.
I was the vice president and ran the division. That was the division of a larger company, and I ran the division. Had about, it was a small company. We had about 50 employees.
Yeah.
And you were principal of Kings Canyon Middle School at the time.
Yeah, boy, that brings back some memories. And it was interesting because you came on board as principal for a day, and that's how we first got to know each other. And you got a sense of what middle school was like in a Fresno Unified. Quite a challenge.
It reminded me of my middle school days, which weren't necessarily the best time of my life.
Well, I think everybody can say that. Well, you've done an awful lot of things. I wanted to talk to you before we get into some of the things you're working on right now, because you're doing some really amazing initiatives. And by the way, folks, Don is currently the Director of Strategic Initiatives at the Fresno Mission, formerly the Director of the Mission, and now you've slid into a different role. We're going to talk a lot about the things that are going on there, but our connection actually goes back even before our Kings Canyon days, because your daughter, in fact, it might be about the same time, but your daughter worked for my wife, because your daughter's a teacher.
Yes, she is.
Yeah.
Yes, she is.
And Dot was principal at a school, and so they had the opportunity to work together. So what's she doing now, your daughter?
She's still teaching.
Okay.
She's teaching in a charter school.
Good.
But she spent 12 years in Kenya, and she went over there to teach. And,
wow.
And that's where she met her family, her husband, and their two children were born there.
Wow.
And they moved back here about 16 years ago.
So do the kids have dual citizenship?
They do, because her husband's English, they do have dual citizenship in both England and the U.S.
Wow. Interesting. So maybe they can get you a dual citizenship. I know you spent some time in Africa too, and that's a place that's been close to your heart. Tell us a little bit about your experience in Africa, because obviously your daughter's there for a number of years.
Yes, and so we made a number of trips there, and I had been in the business world for 35 years.
Wow.
And when I sold the business that I was part owner of and got out of it, which was 2004, we went there for an extended stay. And while I was there, flew to the Congo and worked with a woman who was doing microloans to women through the Mennonite Church, and then also went to Rwanda and delivered wheelchairs for Rotary. And so had some really interesting experiences there. And we came back in November of 2004, had no idea what I was going to do. And then on December 26th of that year, the tsunami hit Southeast Asia.
Wow, I remember that.
So I had an opportunity 3 weeks later to go to Thailand and do some relief there. And we started building some homes there and and had some great experiences. But it was during that time that one night when I couldn't sleep, there were 50 of us living in a big tent we called the White House because it was a white tent. And this was 80 miles north of Phuket,
Okay.
in a very devastated area. But one night when I couldn't sleep at 2 a.m, I got up, and outside, God directed me to Isaiah 58. And part of Isaiah 58 says, if you will feed the poor, take care of those in need, I will take care of you, and your light will shine in the darkness. And so I said, I think I've just found a new purpose.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And, it's interesting. That whole adventure in Thailand was kind of a precursor for all the things you've done since you got back.
I did. When I got back, I worked for Habitat as a volunteer for a couple of years. I worked for the Fresno Leadership Foundation for just over a year on staff there.
Yeah.
I was a staff member at a church for an interim period of time. I've tried retiring a few times, but it just hasn't worked well.
Yeah, that doesn't work, does it? Well, you and I have talked quite a number of times over the years about some of the things that you've been involved in, but let's go back to your director of the Fresno mission, because you had some real challenges when you took over. Financial is always a challenge when you're in a nonprofit world, as you know, but you also ended up having to move the mission, and you got the high-speed rail and, just all kinds of things that were going on. Tell me a little bit of what it was like when you were operating the Fresno mission.
Well, I went to the mission as a volunteer in 2010, and then in 2011, I went on staff in the development department. And in 2016, I became the CEO for a couple of years, 2.5 years or so.
Yeah.
But it was during that time, we had been negotiating with High Speed Rail because they took 5.6 acres of our property,
Wow.
including our main building, or they were planning to. So we had to negotiate that, which took a few years of negotiation.
Negotiating with the government's not an easy thing.
It's very tedious and slow.
Yes.
But in the end, we obtained temporary facilities on the east side of G Street.
Okay.
And we settled with the state, and then in 2018, when Matthew Dildine became the CEO,
Right.
I stepped aside, and I was asked by the National Association of Rescue Missions to help them a little bit. So in 2019, I visited 50 missions in
Wow.
the Southwest, and saw how different missions operated and all the programs that they had, which has kind of been interesting because it's been a good experience to help us in some of the situations we have in our own community.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing. You and I have talked over the years, and when I was at Kings Canyon Middle School, obviously it was a poverty area. There were a lot of, families that were really struggling. There was some homelessness, and I know you have a big heart for homelessness because you're also what I would consider an expert on it. A lot of the things to do and not to do. And there are a lot of mistakes made when we deal with the homeless. Tell me a little bit about, we've only got about 2 minutes in this segment, but just get us started. What got you interested in the homeless to begin with? Obviously, your experience that you talked about, in Thailand, but.
Well, the whole thing of Isaiah 58, if you will feed the poor, take care of those in need, I will take care of you.
That's fantastic.
So I have a strong faith that as long as I do what God wants me to do, he's going to take care of me.
That's a good move.
Because I don't take care of myself very well, but he'll take care of me. So,
yeah.
And maybe the next segment we can get into the homeless issue, but it's a very, very complex issue.
It is.
And in complex issues, there's usually not very simple answers.
No, and in those 50 places that you visited, I'm sure homeless was part of the equation in
Yes.
each of those, and you probably garnered a little bit from several of them, and some that work and some that don't.
exactly.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, that's exactly right. There's some that do it well and some that not
Yeah.
so well.
how do we? And one of the things I want to talk a little bit about with the homeless section is how do we help our government agencies who deal with homelessness? How do we help them become more effective, be better, to do it in a way that actually accomplishes something? Because the frustration that I get from a lot of my friends and things is we see a lot of homeless out there. What do we do to actually help them rather than just pouring money at the situation? Folks, you're listening to Powell to the People, where civility is always in style. And when we get back, we're with Don Eskes here, and we're gonna talk about homeless here in Fresno and some of the things he's learned over the years. So we're really glad you joined us. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Powell to the People. Write it down. On the best talk in town.
Hey, welcome back. Amazing how quickly time flies. We've got our first segment done already. Just want to remind you folks that Good News with Larry Powell can be heard 5 days a week right here. And it's nothing but good news stories. And you can hear that at 10 and at 4. You can also catch us on Spotify and Facebook as well. But you get an opportunity to listen at your leisure. And that's the unique thing about all of the streaming opportunities that are available now. But we're with Don Eskes, who is Director of Strategic Initiatives for the Fresno Mission. And Don, we've started talking a little bit about homeless, and I know Jerry Dyer, our mayor, has made the homeless situation one of the things they'd like to do. I know that the old Smuggler's Inn has been turned into a homeless shelter of sorts. There are a lot of things, and it seems like every friend I have has an answer for the homeless, and many times don't necessarily have a clue. And that's nothing about my friends, but maybe a little of what's going on. But tell me, what is it like in the homeless world, and for those of you who are really trying to help and deal with it?
Well, there's a whole number of categories of homeless.
That's such a key point, because people think there's one thing,
Yes,
with it. Tell us a little bit about that.
And there's, I don't know what the exact current population is. I'm not sure anyone does here in Fresno, but it's around 3,000 or somewhere in that neighborhood.
Wow.
Of people living on the streets. These are the people that are very visible. You see them, they're living in tents or they're living on the sidewalk.
Right.
And within that category, there's a whole number of classifications, if you will. There's those that have severe addiction issues.
Right.
There are those that are mentally ill. In fact, a large number have mental help, mental services help, because if you live on the street for any length of period, your mental acuity decreases.
Yeah.
And then there are those that are just what we call urban campers, where you and I might go up to Sequoia to camp out. They just have chosen to live on the streets.
Wow.
And so that's one population, but that's not the largest population.
Okay.
The largest population are the homeless that we don't see. And those are the ones that maybe can't afford rents. They're living in someone's garage, or they're couch surfing. It's the woman with 3 kids who can't pay the rent.
Right.
It's the man that lost his job and he's living out of his car.
So not necessarily through the fault of their own,
Right.
but they're on the street,
Right.
so to speak. Yeah.
I just met in a restaurant just 2 weeks ago a woman who mentioned to me that she was living in her car. Her and her family were living in their car.
Wow.
And so it is a complex issue, and there's a lot of reasons for it. In addition, homeless is just one event in many people's lives. It's one traumatic event. What we see at the mission is most of the people many of the people that come to us are not the people that are on the streets living in tents, but they're people that find themselves at the end of the road. They have no place to go.
Right.
And they can't afford the rent, but many times they have other traumatic issues in their life. Maybe they can't get a job because they don't have the education.
Right.
They need medical care and they don't have medical care. So it's not uncommon for someone that comes through the mission door to maybe have 6 or 8 significant trauma situations in their lives.
So it's not just one thing.
It's not one thing. And so part of the issue with homelessness is, and this is where it gets very complex, the average citizen, they just want the homeless situation to be dealt with and taken care of. They don't want to see someone camped in the front of their house. They don't want to see streets with urine on them and all this sort of thing. So they're just saying, so there's a pressure on the political side and on societal side, just get these people off the street.
Right.
And without looking at the deeper issues, which are dealing with the other causes, because homelessness many times can be more of a symptom of a deeper problem than the actual problem itself. Not that it isn't a significant problem, but, and challenge, but it points to something deeper.
And that makes a lot of sense because, we had at one point in Fresno Unified, there were 1,800 students that were considered part of the homeless population.
Right.
And you're talking about the mother with 3 kids, and they still have to go to school. They still need services there. And fortunately, school districts like Fresno Unified do a great job of trying to meet the need. But in a lot of ways, it's a Band-Aid because you're not dealing with the deeper issues, and they're not necessarily set up to do that. So that makes it very difficult.
So the state is putting a lot of money toward housing the homeless. But unless funding is also going to these other services to deal with some of the root causes, all it means is we're going to hide the problem off the street in homes.
Sure.
And we as taxpayers are going to be paying the bill. I just read in a newspaper that in Los Angeles, it's costing them over $600,000 a door for housing.
Wow.
In fact, on one site they had it was $875,000 a door. You cannot fund your way out of that situation unless you deal with these other issues.
Yeah, that's just absolutely crazy. And I think about the kids that did come to schools, for example, and you knew they were struggling. You tried to find ways, and obviously we have closed closets and food pantries, and we direct them to services, and we do a lot of things like that. But when their mother is either, on drugs or mental health issues herself or things, if you don't deal with the parent of the child, you can't really help the child, because in a lot of cases the child is raising the parent.
Well, it's not even those that have drug issues or those significant issues. Maybe it's education. Maybe it's just we have cases where parents come in with kids. They don't know how to raise their kids because they didn't have any example. And those sorts of things. And the other issue we have is we're having an increasing homeless population. And I'm not talking about living on the streets. I'm talking about people that have gone beyond their resources.
Right.
I did a survey of Central Fresno a couple of years ago, and 35% of the population in 4 zip codes, right where we're at right now, in this studio.
You're in Manchester Center.
In Manchester Center, 35% in the surrounding zip codes were at the poverty level, which is $26,000 a year, just under $26,000 a year for a family of 4. Well, if you take 30% of your income for housing, which is kind of a standard, they're able to afford $600 to $700 a month for rent.
There's not much you can get for that.
You cannot get. It was less than, at that time, it was less than 3% of the housing was at that rate, and we know where it was situated.
Wow.
And today, with rents going up, apartments renting for $12, $14, $1,500 a month, people are spending 50 to 70% of their income on housing, and that's
Sure.
unsustainable.
So
You have to buy food, medical
yeah,
services, etc.
wow, clothes, all those
Yeah,
things. What
right.
you know, and churches really do everything they can. I know that at People's Church, my church, we have a food pantry. We have a clothes
Right.
clothes closet. And so every Tuesday you can come and literally we have shopping carts. You can go through our facility there and you can pick up what you want. You can put it in a bag. We'll help get you to the car with it. We try to help on those levels. But I was there the other day when, in fact, this last Tuesday, the parking lot was packed. And these are folks that, are really struggling. And my question for you is, what have you seen with COVID and how has that impacted, a lot of families that lost jobs and things like that?
Well, it's obviously had a significant impact on the population, on our society, because people have lost jobs.
Yep.
It's another challenge that we're having to face.
And these are folks that before that, perfectly comfortable in life, before they lost their jobs, they were paying their rent or their mortgages. They were, taking care of their kids and doing all those things. And all of a sudden, just devastation, so it's very, very hard. You've got a thing that I want to talk about, City Center. We're going to talk about in our next segment, that is providing some solutions for some of these things.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
and that's just right here near Manchester as well. What is it about this strategic location here?
Well, we call it City Center because it's in the very center of the city.
Okay.
And we had an opportunity to purchase the old Sierra Hospital a couple of years ago.
Yep.
Which we did.
Had my appendix out there.
Yeah. Well, I didn't find your name scratched on the wall, so.
No.
But we purchased it, and we're in the process of converting that to what we call City Center. It's not just for the Fresno mission. We expect to have 15 or more partner agencies that will providing services out of that center.
This is one exciting thing. And folks, we're going to have to take a break here real quick, but City Center and partnerships and a whole lot of things and $30 million. We're going to talk a little bit about that as well. It's pretty unique for Fresno to have something like this. You're listening to Powell to the People, where civility is always in style. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Powell to the People. Write it down.
Hey, welcome back. I love that God's love and faithfulness will never change. And boy, it's incumbent upon those of us who call on the name of the Lord and, are part of that faith family to find ways to do things for those who have less, those who are struggling. Jesus was a great example of that. We saw it regularly in his ministry. But I love what you're doing, with the Fresno mission and all of the partnership. But because of your whole idea with strategic initiatives, you're coming up with 15 other partners at the old Sierra Hospital right here on Dakota, just off of Blackstone. In fact, Zilfrid's was a place I used to eat all the time, some Armenian food that was really good right on the corner there. And but it's amazing when you think about this is a huge, huge facility that I think holds some answers to a lot of the things happening in Fresno for those who are really struggling. You got a charter school there. You got a bunch of different things. Tell us a little bit about what the plans are, what's open, what you're going to be opening, and how big it is.
Well, the vision for City Center was birthed a large part by Matt Dildine, who's the CEO of the mission, as well as some other staff members. And the whole idea was that as we see people that have multiple challenges in their life, housing being one, but other challenges, educational challenges,
right,
medical, child raising, job skills, et cetera, et cetera. It kind of goes on. And we could probably name a dozen or more different significant challenges that we find people having. The idea was, let's deal with the whole person to help, and the whole family, to bring them from a broken state to a healthy state.
I like that.
And so as we visioned this, and as we are continue to develop it, we don't have a stamped plan. It's kind of an evolving situation. But our vision is to create a center where people walk in. It's not a institutional look to it.
Right.
It's kind of like going to a Bitwise or to a nice hotel or something like that.
A professional organization.
Professional.
Yeah.
And we want to treat people with respect and dignity, and give them as much respect and dignity. Many of the people that we see, one of the issues that they have all these issues, but they don't have a network around them. They're isolated, either individually or as a family.
COVID didn't help that either.
No.
Yeah.
And I'm meeting with a man right now he won't be he's not necessarily part of the mission, but he told me he doesn't have one friend.
Wow.
And so that's part of it. And so creating an environment where people can develop friendships, relationships, because the key to all this is relationship.
Absolutely.
Everything we do in life is relationship. So we want to create an environment that's a welcoming relationship, will welcome people and give them a sense of trust as well as ease, so that we can start helping them build relationships with others.
Yeah.
And then start assessing their needs and looking at what they need. So this center, which ultimately will have a 4-story housing unit, for temporary housing.
Wow.
People will come in. They may stay for a few days. They may stay for months, depending what their needs are and how soon we can get them stabilized. They help them get stabilized.
Sure.
We will have various services there. We realize as a mission, we do some things well, but we can't do everything well.
Sure.
And in fact, there's some things we probably shouldn't do. So we have partnered we are planning to partner with 15 or 16 different agencies and ministries and organizations that provide services.
And some of those are operating now, even though the center isn't yet fully open.
It's not fully open. It will not be open until the end of 2022.
Okay.
But we do have the Resiliency Center there, which is a counseling center and affiliated with the Fresno Police Chaplaincy.
Right.
Aspen Charter School has started a junior high and high school. This year they have 7th, 8th, and 9th, and they'll be adding a grade every year with ultimately somewhere around 400 students.
Wow.
And they specialize for students that have specific needs, and then we're starting the renovation of a building for Family Health Care Center where we'll have a free clinic. Fresno Metro Ministry is already operating there, and we have a whole number of other agencies coming in, including Elder Abuse Services Inc., EC, Breaking the Chains that deals with human trafficking,
right.
Central Valley Justice Coalition, City Without Orphans, and a list, Clovis Adult School. So there's really kind of endless possibilities.
It's a one-stop shop.
It is.
In a lot of ways.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we want to be able to deal with the whole person. The other benefit from this is what we've already seen it, is as we work together as organizations, we start building walls. We start building bonds between each other, because as organizations, we tend to build silos.
Yeah, our tower
And we need to break down the silos and build bridges. And we're starting to see a lot of bridges being built, even by those that are already operating there.
Wow. You know, you think about there are so many families, and Fresno Unified, just to give you our listeners an example, is the second highest poverty district in the nation, not just in Fresno County, not just in the state, but in the nation. And when you extrapolate that out to families, we have a poverty rate here that is second to none in a lot of ways. And it's very, very challenging. And when you think about transportation, you're near a transportation
Yes.
hub, which is fantastic with the busing. So that can get folks to you, but they can't get to services at multiple locations. But they can certainly come to City Center and receive the help they
Right.
need in one location. That's remarkable.
Transportation is a huge issue in a significant population of that type. And so we want to deal with that. Our goal is to continue to help them stabilize and then find longer term housing and stability in their lives.
Yeah. And every kid needs a family that's stable. You're going to do well in school. You're going to do well in life. You have to have some predictability.
Yes.
And homeless is unpredictable. Weather, I mean,
Another situation that affects the homeless, you think about it, COVID has had a significant effect because there's so many more people that are working from home.
yes.
So we're seeing a lot of influx from the LA area. That's why home prices are escalating so rapidly, because people are coming in from Southern California or the San Francisco Bay Area, selling their homes up there and they can buy significantly more home in Fresno
And pay cash maybe.
and pay cash
Yeah.
than they move from a 1,000 square feet to 3,000 square feet or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so that's affected home pricing, and that's why we have such a shortage of homes as well.
And no matter how much it seems the government tries, controlling home prices is just like it's like trying to use a butterfly net to grab a vapor.
Yeah.
You keep swatting at it, but it doesn't seem like there's anything in the net. And I know there are a lot of elected officials who are really trying to do a good job
Right.
and looking to do that. In fact, our mayor, Jerry Dyer, has made homelessness one of the issues that,
Yep.
is dear to his heart, and trying to find solutions for it. I know Smuggler's Inn has been turned into a homeless center where families can go, but the numbers are just overwhelming.
Well, and the other issue, and the public officials and government agencies do a great job in a lot of areas, but the one area they cannot address are the root causes, which many times are spiritual
Oh,
in nature.
yeah.
And what we see in the brokenness of people, if we can help them on their spiritual journey, they can start dealing with the issues.
Yeah, exactly. If you come into life and try to live life with no hope, nothing for the future, don't have a sense of, for us, you and I, boy, we're part of a faith family. We love the Lord. We've been, very blessed. And as a result, step out and try to do things for others as well, because Jesus was a great example of that. And it's just, you cannot live life without faith, I don't believe.
No, you can't. And that's the way I define poverty. Poverty is not primarily economic, although it's a significant issue. But really, poverty is life with no hope.
Yep.
And I saw this in countries that I visited around the world. I was working with the Mennonite Church, as I said earlier, in Congo, and I asked them a question because there was garbage piled up in the streets, and I said, I understand the poverty, people living on $30 a month,
Yeah.
and all that, but why the garbage? And the answer I got was, what difference does it make?
Oh boy, that's very telling, isn't it?
So that's the issue right there.
We want to continue this conversation. I'll tell you, Don, 3 segments have gone by already. and we're going to talk a little bit more. You're listening to Powell to the People, where civility is always in style, and we'll be right back.
You're listening to Powell to the People. Write it down. On the best talk in town.
Well, welcome back. I can't believe, Don, we're in our fourth segment already. This hour flies. It's so interesting. You had mentioned the Congo. My daughter Caitlin, who is a special ed administrator teacher for a charter school here in town, she was in Kinshasa.
Oh, yeah.
And she talked about that. There were 6 of them that went. She was the shortest. She's 6 foot tall. She was the shortest of the group that went, and they did a computer school and did a bunch of things. And as a faith-based mission, they went there. But they talked about that there was garbage everywhere, and if you don't have hope, what does it matter? Where you throw your stuff, and what you live in, Well,
and if you have no hope, you generally have low self-esteem.
Yep.
And respect. I mean, we look on our streets and we see the garbage around about in the camps. To me, that seems to be indicative of what people are thinking.
Yeah, and thinking about themselves.
Yeah. And so our goal is to inspire hope in people. We want to give them hope. I've watched it again and again, where individuals that come to our mission in our recovery programs come in, they're at the bottom. They've been abandoned by all family members because of things they've done. They've lived on the streets. And we can keep them, if they'll stay long enough. At some point, many times you see what happens: a spark of hope, saying, "I don't have to live like this." And
wow,
you just kind of fan that flame, and they walk out a year later.
Yeah,
and their heads held high, and they're moving on in life.
It's interesting too. A lot of families here in Fresno want to help. They want to do something, significant and really good for folks that are struggling, because they have a good heart for them and things. What would you recommend in terms of where do they send their dollars? How do they help? Because we're told don't give it directly on the street, because oftentimes it ends up with different purposes.
That's true. We find it probably goes to not where they think it's going.
Yep.
Having said that, if God's Spirit leads you to do it,
I'm
not going to argue with God's Spirit. So,
I hear you.
So, but that brings me to City Center. I would ask that those that would like to know more, call the mission and take a tour. We want to give people the vision that we have and share the vision, and we want people to be a part of it by participating, either physically volunteering at some point or money, their funds. I like to say we're non-denominational. We take 5, 10s, 20s, 50s, 100s.
Yeah, I love it.
So we are faith-based. We're Christian-based. We believe very strongly that the gospel is the way people's lives are changed. But we also do it in meet the felt needs of people.
Sure.
Which sometimes people come in and they don't even know what their needs are. They don't even know what the questions are. So we're there to help them and help them physically, emotionally, spiritually.
Off the top of your head, do you know the Fresno Mission number to call?
No.
Okay, folks, you can look it up, and we'll try to post it as well. But there's something really good that happens when we step up and do something for somebody else. God does more for us than we could possibly imagine. And one of the unique things with all of this is that when we go beyond ourselves and take some resources that we've been blessed with and then bless others, it comes back to us multifold. I mean, it's amazing.
The phone number is
all right.
0839.
So 268-0839. Call the Fresno Mission, and they can hook you up with you've got all kinds of needs. I know you're building, you're going to be furnishing, you're going to be doing all kinds of stuff. You've also got ongoing needs for a lot of families that are there. So there's a place for everybody. I'm assuming you still can use volunteers.
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
COVID had an impact for a while where we had to restrict volunteers, and periodically, if we have some sort of outbreak, we'll restrict that. But we're back on track again.
Yeah.
So hopefully COVID won't stop that. And again, I would say from a financial perspective, we take individual donations. I would challenge companies and businesses. There may be specific needs that we have as we develop City Center for different aspects, both in materials.
Sure.
And we will take sponsors of various aspects of that. This is going to be a very unique place. It will have a coffee shop in it, like a Starbucks type of coffee shop. It'll have a barber shop. It will have child care facilities for those that are residents. We are trying to make it a place that anyone in the community, whether you're homeless or not, would want to come.
Wow. And eliminating excuses so that they can be successful, because the excuse is really legitimate in a lot of ways. Childcare, for example. How in the world do I go to work if I don't have somebody to take care of my kid? And then obviously for 7th grade and up, the charter school is right there. So you've got some opportunities for some families that are, going to be in some of the longer term housing programs that they could get in school.
What we want to have people understand is they might be in a situation they have no control over. They might find themselves just in a situation where their resources are gone through no fault of their own.
Right.
Now, sometimes it is their responsibility, and if it is, they need to take full ownership to that.
Yep.
And acknowledge it. And then whether it's their own fault or no fault of their own, just circumstances, we need to teach them and help them understand that their past difficulties do not portend their future.
Yeah, it doesn't define who they're going to be if they choose.
Don't look back.
Yeah.
Don't look back.
I love it.
Look forward.
Yeah.
And then the third one is never, ever, ever give up. Keep hitting.
Well, and a lot of folks who are in this struggle in life don't believe it that you want to help. And so there's a convincing that has to take place as well, because it's been proven to them time and time again that the help is short-lived. It doesn't sustain them. And oftentimes it's less than what they thought they were going to get. So they don't trust. I know with kids, especially in schools, they've been hurt by adults. And so when an adult says, hey, we really do love you, we care about you, we want to help you, they kind of go prove it, and they do things that are stupid, to make you prove it because they don't trust you.
Yeah, one of the things we're anticipating on site is having a gymnasium and a youth drop-in center.
Yeah, I love it.
We've realized, for instance, foster youth, when they age out of the system, many of them wind up on the streets.
Right.
And they don't trust adults. And so, these are just different things that we've uncovered that we understand. And again, we don't have all the answers. We don't have all the programs. I mean, I'm sure they'll change over time, but we want to do the best job we can absolutely do to demonstrate our Christian faith and to help people move forward in life.
Now, this total project that you're working on right now for City Center, the building, you're looking at a $30 million project?
Overall, the whole project. And that's everything, the purchase of the property and everything. So there's a big need there.
Yeah.
And we have a variety of sources for funding, but we need to raise a significant amount of money as well. And we're doing that on a faith basis.
Yeah.
We believe that that God will provide and that people will step forward as they understand what God's asking us to do.
You know, it's really an amazing thing when you think about it. One stop, Dakota and Blackstone, busing right here from the Fresno metropolitan area is basically, this is the hub that goes out from here to everywhere. Families that just can't get around other than that. Gas is what, almost $5 a gallon, heading toward that is what I've heard, especially with what's happening, you know, in the Ukraine and everything like that. So, you know, and inflation is just driving prices up. Cost for your building is going up, you know, almost as we sit here and speak.
This is absolutely the worst time to try to build anything, because material costs, labor shortages, material shortages. But again, God knew what he was doing.
Yep.
We probably don't, but he does. So we're moving forward.
Well, you know, at the end of the journey, the faith journey, you get to see what happens, and it always works. It's just absolutely amazing. Well, I love what you guys are doing, Don. It's an amazing thing when you think about it. A place for families to get all the help that they can get. Just the idea of a barbershop, you know, and getting your hair cut, you know. Yeah. I mean, there's so many good things going on. I'd say, folks, go to the website for the Fresno Mission. Learn more about this. Make that phone call so that you can see what's going on. And take a tour. You guys would love to show what's going on.
Yes, we would.
Yeah, and if you've got a few resources you'd like to add to this, we'd love to have you do that. You've been listening to Powell to the People, and I've had as my guest today Don Eskes, who is the Strategic Initiative Director for the Fresno Mission, and we're on a mission to make sure this thing happens. So anything you can do to help, folks. Thanks for joining us today, where civility is always in style.
Okay.
Thank you.